Welcome to the September 14th Concord Historical Commission meeting. Oops. There we go. My name is Alan Bogosian, and I'd ask the members to introduce themselves for the record.
Should I start?
Yeah.
Nancy Nelson.
Melissa Saulfield.
Nancy Frasella-Lee.
Michael Capizzi.
Thank you all. And we have an agenda this evening with a couple of items on the agenda. And I think we can get right into the items, right? And the first one is the Mass DOT tercentenary markers.
It's easier to say than the
It
current.
took me a while to be able to say that. It's a terrible word.
Tercentenary. Better than what's the 250th anyway.
Sesquicentennial.
Yes, right, correct.
And we had Nancy's report. Would you like to have the floor, Nancy?
Sure. Okay. So I don't really know. So I had a whole plan of what to present, but since there's so few people, I don't know. You've read the report. Anyone from the public might not have read the report. So I'm just going to talk really to the members and assume, because the issues, I'm not going to do a deep dive into explaining the markers. I can give a brief overview if you want, for the record.
And excuse me, this is for the members to familiarize ourselves with your report.
Yeah, sure. Right. Okay. So first of all, I'll just give a brief overview. Joe Palumbo came to our commission, I think in January, and told us that he called our attention to the tercentenary markers, the 3 extant markers that are by the roadsides in our town. And he said that there were problems embedded in them. And Melissa asked me if I would research them, and I agreed to do that. And that led to a wider project, researching all the monuments and markers in town. So I've been really busy since then. And the tercentenary markers really, even though there are only 3 of them, it really took up a lot of time. And I always tell people when I explain about them that when I knew that I would pass by them, I read them, but I really they didn't make an impression on me. I really didn't, they kind of mystified me. I understood, they're understandable, but they're not quite, there's so much more, you realize that there's so much more underlying them that I don't find them good as educational tools. So that's how the project came to be. And here we are 8 months later or something like that. And I wrote a report that's quite long. And why is the report so long? It's because the subject is complex, a lot more complex than I ever imagined at first. And I realized that I needed to understand the issues. If we were going to, the goal was, Joe's suggestion was, he is a town guide. I should back up and say he's a town guide. He was born and raised here, went off, but then to come back and knows a lot about Concord history as a town guide, is on our DEI commission. And he was saying that they should not be there, that they are factually incorrect and they are offensive not only to Native Americans, but they should be offensive to anyone who cares about social justice, telling the truth about our history, and also just presenting a really high standard of educational material to tourists. We have over 1 million tourists now, I think, a year that come through town. This is a very famous place. And we have, a lot of people who study our history, and there's no reason for us to be presenting such highly visible information in a public setting. And so I'll explain a little bit about the tercentenary markers, just for the record. They were made in 1930 as a group. There were 275 of them made, and a commission in Boston, and they were placed in towns all over the state. Concord got 4. One is missing. I have no idea what happened to it. And a little booklet was published about them that gives all the inscriptions on them. And Harvard historian was in charge of writing them, although I doubt it must have been a group of people, but his name is on the brochure as the pamphlet as having revised them. So that's the background. So they're almost 100 years old. Some have been wasting away. They're made of cast iron. They're rusty. Some are in the weeds. Some are in rural roadside locations, so they're kind of forgotten. Others that are in town, in the middle of towns. A few towns have decided to repaint theirs or have them conserved. And I have collected all of the articles that's in my bibliography about those. And in recent years, they've come under more scrutiny because people are realizing that they are offensive, especially not all of them. Some are fine, some are just purely factual, but the ones that talk about, especially incidents that deal with Native Americans during the King Philip's War and other wars too, but primarily that war, that those who are writing them, and the way that they're written, they're presented from the colonist, from the colonial colonist point of view, that, they'll say, this family was savagely murdered. And so, but there's nothing about, yes, they were, that's true. So that would be a true statement, but there are none that say the Indians were also in the war and their families and way of life they were being killed and their way of life was being disturbed too. So there's no underlying, understanding of that. There's no way to tell all that complex history on these signs. And they were in 1930, it was a time when tourism was starting to evolve. They were purposely put at roadside height along the road so that people would drive around and see these things. I recently visited my family in Pennsylvania. I grew up in Washington Crossing, another very historic town. And of course, now I'm seeing markers and monuments everywhere. And there was one in my town about George Washington crossing the Delaware. So it made me go and look at all of those markers. Those markers were not put up in 1 year. I think they started in 1947, and they're still being made, although they have a formula and they're all being made, right? But the Historical Society in Pennsylvania are re-looking at all of them, and they are doing what I've done for just R3. They're looking to see which ones are correct and are fine, but they're taking down and replacing the ones that are not right. In our state, we've had trouble tracking down who actually owns them. Now Mass DOT can oversee them, but they were given as gifts to our town. And so every town is looking at their own signs. No town has taken this step to propose to actually take them down, but it's been discussed. And as I presented in my bibliography, there have been a lot of articles written about them. And there was a public forum in Sudbury a couple of months ago that I went to and attended that, and some Native Americans attended that also. And they had a panel and they discussed whether the markers in that town should be taken down. And then they had a panel discussion, and then they broke it down into groups. And there were some Indigenous people there who strongly advocated that they should be removed. They clearly said it's very offensive to them and there's no reason why they should stay up. So I really worked hard to get this right. And I'm going to say to all of you, because I don't know a couple of you not very well, I'm an art historian. I'm not a specialist in Indigenous history or colonial history, but I'm a historian. An art historian is an art historian. You study a painting, you need to know who the artist was. You need to know about the history, the time that it was made, any issues in the painting. You need to know often religious history if you're studying art, as I did from the Middle Ages. So I'm trained to do research, but I always qualify that I'm not a specialist in this area because it's a very sensitive subject, and there are people who are writing really thoughtful books about this, and who they're experts. And so I've tried even to get a hold of some of those people. It's hard to get, to reach out to them. And I've also wanted our committee to talk about this first, because if we take the next step and if it goes to the select board, I want to make sure I've worked very hard on this report, and I think it's pretty accurate, but I want other people to review it too. I want to be really clear about that. What else do I want to tell you before we discuss this? As I said, if Concord does this, we will be the first town to do so, to take them down. And people will say, well, what are you going to do with them? I'm hoping that the Concord, they just won't get thrown away. I'm hoping that they will go to the Concord Museum. I am working on a project there. And so I'm always talking to David Wood and Jessica Tassani. I just had a discussion with her today, and she's the person who was responsible for putting together the gallery about Musketequid when they did the renovation there. And so she does have a background in studying in these Indigenous issues, and she worked with Indigenous people in doing that work. So she, and I just asked her again today, I said, because I asked her to read my report. She also, when in the statement of purpose, you notice that I list all the different tribal groups and say these people live here. And she's the one who had me put all those names in. And I said, that doesn't sound right. So she's going to look at it again, because I still don't know if I have it exactly right. So I'm working with her on that, but I clearly asked her the question, what do you think? And she said, there's no reason. She doesn't see any reason to have them stay up. So that's the background. I want to just, after doing this work and the way that I went about it, as I said, I found a lot of references in newspaper articles to particular towns where these markers are. I found I went to academic research, especially about King Philip's War, and Christine DeLucia, who is now a professor at Williams College. She got her PhD at Yale University. She has spoken at one of these forums, not the one that I went to. And she wrote, of all the markers of 275, what did she write about? She wrote about ours. One about the mill dam, and in her book that it's a just an article, an academic article. And then the other one is in her book of the same year, 2018, called Memory Lands. And which marker does she have reproduced? Jethro's tree. So she really is a person I wanted to turn to. I did email her. She has not replied, and I was very careful. I said, I'm not asking you to give an opinion about this. I just want to know if you would just review the facts and make sure that I haven't gotten anything wrong. She hasn't responded yet. So I don't know if she will, because it's sensitive and she might not want to broach that. I'm not sure. I just don't know. She could be away. I have no idea. Bob Gross, he will also read this. I've also talked to Jan Turnquist at Orchard House, because if you read my report, during King Philip's War, we had a really terrible episode where around 58 people were brought there during the war. They were in the praying village of Neshoba, and they were brought there by John Hort just for their protection. They were locked up at night, and then they could work during the day. And because 2 people were murdered on the fringes of town, Concordians were very frightened, as people were all over this region. And they were forcibly taken by a Captain Mosley without government sanction. He did it on his own accord. And they went to Deer Island, and Deer Island was terrible. And I have to be very honest, before I started this, I had heard about it. I didn't know anything about it. And I certainly didn't know that had happened, that we had such a strong Concord connection. And as I point out in my report, because I'm studying all the markers and monuments too, as far as I know, there are only two that reference Native Americans. One is the one from 1885 at Egg Rock. Well, that's not true. Sorry, there are more. There's the one at Egg Rock, and then there's a recent one that is the only real positive one that actually honors people. That's in the Knoll portion of Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, and I didn't know it until Joe Palumbo told me about it. I had never been to the Knoll section of the cemetery, so I doubt many people know about that. So one thing that people are noting is that, there is so little that honors our Native American heritages. And as I pointed out, Concord has only been conquered for 388 years, whereas Musquetaquid or indigenous habitation occurred over 10,000 years. So we really are delinquent in that. And just like we're confronting all of these issues, we have now the Robbins House, we have the Musquetaquid Gallery. And also important to note in this context, in this discussion, before I turn it over to everyone else, is what's happening with the 2025 Permanent Memorial Committee. I am sitting in on all of their meetings, and they don't have a definitive design. I think we all need to know that right now. They're working through it. They have a statement of purpose. When I first started going to those meetings, they were talking about developing the parcel of land that's in Monument Square. That will be the 2025 Memorial Park. I don't know what they're going to how they're going to refer to it, but that's what they're going to do. And at first, the idea was to honor all people whose history has not been well told and well represented, namely African Americans, women, and Native Americans. Recently, they are in their statement, they are now focusing on Ellen Garrison Clark Jackson. But I push back on that. I don't think that I don't think that we should discuss that as if that's fact, as if that's going to happen, because the process still needs to play out. And so while what we do with these signs might have something to do with it, I really see them as separate issues. I think we have to take one step at a time. This taking down 3 signs, or the proposal to do it, has taken me 9 months to get my head around it. And so that's all I have to say about that. I can talk more about Jethro. He's become a very interesting character to both Anne and I. And I do want to say that's the most prominent sign, maybe, Jethro's tree. And Jethro, there were 2 Jethros. I've given the whole history. I really tried to track down the tradition, where that tradition came from, of Jethro's tree. And I haven't been able to track it back before 1835, Shattuck's book. He heard it orally. He calls it a tradition in his book. Maybe there's something else out there that's written and documented. I don't know. I haven't found it yet. So I would love to do that. Maybe there was a tree called Jethro's tree. Who knows? But there were 2 Jethros, father and a son, and Jethro conflates the two. He mistakes them a little bit in all of his descriptions. I'm not going to tell you because it's all in the report. But the old father, the older one, had been dead by the time that there was a deposition in 1684 given. And so he was hung in Boston, and he was wrongly hung. And so his family, I'm not going to go into all the details. His family went to Deer Island. His son led a more prominent role, could probably read and write. And so it's a very complicated history. But if we're going to pay homage to Jethro, the Jethro who was hung, he deserves more than a tree, because something really terrible happened to him. And no one, I doubt anyone in Concord knows about that history unless they're real scholars or have really delved deep into this history, as I had to do. So I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to everybody else.
I would just note to begin with that there's on Wednesday, September 27th, between 7 and 8:30. The Monument Square, whatever, subcommittee is gonna have a discussion of, let's see, come and learn about the evolving concept for memorial green space in Monument Square. So it'll be at the townhouse. The hearing room on Wednesday, September 27th, 7 to 8:30. So this seems to wrap right up into that.
That's, you're talking the 1693 project, right, Nancy?
Yes.
So myself and Luis from the Historic District Commission sat in on a meeting. I think it was last week or about 10 days or so ago with that, and we discussed that section of land with Joe. Joe was there, and Ann was there as well. And what they're looking for is our rubber stamp on their proposal, you know, for that section of land and for the monument that's going to go there. But what wasn't discussed is what type of monument, what it's about, what it's the details of it.
There's no proposal yet.
Yeah,
Right.
there's nothing, we're not rubber
Oh.
stamping anything, there's nothing to stamp.
Right.
I just want to tell you, I have gone to all their meetings, in the last meetings, and I'm actually asking now to become a member of that committee. I don't know if they'll let me go on it, but I hesitated. I didn't ask. I kept telling them I'm going as an observer from the historical commission. And because it just flows naturally from this marker and monuments program project, but I've written this week to Gary. He's busy, or he hasn't written me back. I don't know what the rules are. I don't know if they'll accept me on.
It's a select board appointment, isn't it? Melissa, you're the only one I know who's on one of the committees.
I'm not sure that it was. I think Gary could, I don't know. I don't remember. I guess I did have to go to the town clerk to get sworn in on my committee,
Yeah.
but I think it's something that Gary could recommend.
Sure.
So I think,
Write me
you
back.
should
Hopefully he's
pursue it.
thinking about it, and maybe he's asking questions, or maybe he's busy. I don't know why he hasn't responded, but whatever. One of the things that I am, there's not an artist or an art historian on that committee, of which I have backgrounds in both, and monuments, so I think I have a contribution to make to them, and I have been contributing all along with them. And I went to the last forum. I've listened to how they're going to structure this one. I've listened to all the proposals from them, and honestly, they are not there yet. It is a process, so we can't assume anything. There's nothing definitive about it. It's still a work in progress.
Mhm.
Well, and I don't, they're not trying to push anything either. I hadn't heard really about this Ellen Garrison thing. I would object to that, because I think what you're pointing out, there are a lot of stories to tell. And one of the work that I've been doing on my portion of the Concord 250 is I've come to understand, for most people, they see this as an opportunity to tell a more complete story about Concord and Concord's history. So to focus on one individual and or the Blacks who of the time of the revolution would be inappropriate. And I don't really think that's going to happen. I think that's among the reasons Gary wants to have the whole community buy in on this. He knows it's really important that he gets the support of as many people as possible. And so this is one public meeting. I don't think this will be the last that they will hold at all, not from
Nope.
what I've understood.
Mhm.
So, I know that people are concerned about what's going to be done, what will or will not be concerned, but my opinion is that we keep this as a separate issue, because all of these things are a process and are very involved. And what we do with these signs, we can do other things. In doing the marker and monuments project, at the end of it, and the committee, I would invite all of you, if you want to help. I didn't mean to be doing all the work myself. I'd love to have, if you want to do more work, it's optional. But I invite you if you want. I just want to make sure that people don't know that I want to do it all myself, because that's not my intention. I will.
Great
I
job.
love doing it, but I love doing it, but you know, if someone else is interested, that would be fantastic. But I see the markers. What I was going to say is, in one of the things that will do is give us, you know, a document that will show what we're strong in and what we're not strong in. And we already know, really. And so we know that we don't have enough markers, the correct markers related to Native Americans. In fact, the one, as I point out in my paper, the one in front of the so-called one that says, you know, on the site was Peter Bulkley's house, which is not in the right place, really. But anyway, that, you know, that tells basically the same story as the Jethro's Tree sign. It tells the same story, even though there's fact, you know. So that another argument for, you know, are we going to lose something by taking down that, in particular, the Jethro's Tree sign? The same information is presented down the street on that sign. And
Well,
So
I have a question. So you said that in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Historical Society was reviewing all of them. We have not reached out to Mass Historical to seek their input at all. I mean, that's one option. I can't remember the name of the lady who's the head of Mass Historical Society. There's also the Mass Historical Commission, and so I'm not sure.
Rona.
And Melissa, and I can attest to that. A couple months ago, the Pennsylvania Historic Commission, actually the Gettysburg Historical Commission, they have a new park, and they have a new venue, and the history has changed.
About the battle?
Yes.
So there's more information. So they've
right, and they're moving towards that. Yes, absolutely.
But so in our case, you know, to seek additional maybe advice and guidance, I don't know if Mass Historical would be helpful. I don't know.
Well, I'm sure they're dealing with the same issue on many fronts, I would think.
Well, I hope so.
Not just the
Frankly.
markers, but-
You know, it's akin to the Confederate monuments in the South. In my eyes, this is not unlike that problem that the Southern states have, or any place where they honor, you know, a Confederate general.
You know, I'm having trouble, I think, from Nancy's report and also from these signs. I think all three of them use the word settlement. And that seems to be a linchpin for the objection to these signs, because you talk about the first settlement. You're talking basically about the first English settlement.
Or European, yeah.
And then, well, they were English.
Yes.
But anyway, so the other things may or may not be false. There was an exchange of money for something for land. And it happened on certain date. And at the mill dam, they replaced the weir and they built the road there. So the objection is to the word settlement in both places, maybe, and especially the third one, the first settlement westward. You know, I can understand this was the settlement of European non-native people. I know for a fact that farming in Concord has turned up all kinds of native artifacts. Joe Palumbo, senior and junior, I think, agreed to donate a whole box full of stuff that have been turned up over the years. So I think there's stories to tell, and we have tangible things to bring forward about these. But these three, the objection seems to be to the word settlement.
Well, I also have an objection to the word of Jethro's Tree. Jethro,
well, that's a legend.
Is it a legend? But the tree feature, where does the tree come into? What the tree is?
It just got passed down, and it's probably not important, and it may or may not have existed, and it may or may not matter.
I hope I explained it clearly in my report, because I
read it and I didn't get that, I guess.
Okay, so let's talk about the tree then, okay? Newton's apple tree. I relate to Newton's apple tree, and I lived in Cambridge, England, and there is a Newton's apple tree that the tour guides, point out, but it is not really Newton's apple tree, okay?
Well, fine. Yeah.
There are all kinds of trees that get fame. Maybe there was a tree.
Maybe there wasn't.
Possible. Maybe there.
Well, so
it's
why
fine.
the tree and what's, so either it was at the tree or it was at Peter Bulkley's house, but as you point out in your paper,
Yeah.
Peter Bulkley's house didn't exist at the time.
Yeah.
Can I recognize Anne? Anne's got her hand up. Anne?
Hi.
Hi, Anne.
So I was asked by the 2025 Permanent Memorial Committee to write a cultural history of the parcel 1693, which included, the Jethro's Tree site, which was also the site of the Bulkley House, and the site of the Dr. Timothy Minot House. And then the jail was sort of up, in between, the parcel 1693 and the parcel to the north. And so, there are three sort of key events. And I would love to actually be able to share this parcel history with you, because it will, you can't make an informed decision without the actual facts. So I've also been working on Jethro's Tree, and, considering that tradition through time. And it's a whole different take from Nancy's take. So I think, it's another, art and architectural and cultural history perspective on this tradition. But
Can we look at that now? Do you want to do that now?
no. So I'm not quite ready. I mean, this has popped up, in
That's ready, and I've asked you to explain that, and I've been working on that. You're working for our committee, and so if you see something different, if you had told me, and I could have had it in this report, and we're discussing it now. So I don't. When are you going to be? Yeah. Okay, I'll just stop. When are you going to share it?
I'm a scholar, and so I want to take my time and get it right. And I've been working weekends on this. So, and with the parcel 1693, I don't have the approval of the chair yet to share it. So I just wanted to be respectful of the chair.
Our chair you're talking about.
The chair of the 2025 permanent
2025.
Memorial.
Right.
They clearly have a communications schedule, and I want to be respectful of their schedule. So all of this is all tied together, and so it's out of consideration for their committee that I'm also holding back. But it does, deserves to be carefully cited and everything else. And
You think we'll be able to see something by next month, or?
I'll try. I'll do my best. Yeah.
Or maybe not by
Well,
the 27th.
Would you be ready by the 27th? Is that when it is, 28th? I mean, it seems to
27th.
me.
I am objecting to that. I have told everybody my schedule. I have been following that committee. I'm not going to be able to be at the 27th, and I was officially asked to do this project. And so I feel very responsible for it. And I stand by my work. And of course, there could be more. I wish that we would collaborate with it. And I wish, because I'm ready now. I changed my flights to go to England. I'm ready now. I've been working on it for 8 months.
Right. Mine is different. The cultural history of parcel 1693. And I was specifically asked by the 2025 permanent memorial.
I understand. And I've heard all the presentations.
I have.
Well, so, I mean, Anne, could you at the very least just talk a little bit about the Jethro Tree question?
What?
Could you just address the Jethro's Tree issue? What did your research uncover about Jethro's Tree?
Right. I think I would like to do it visually. Again, I'm an art and architectural historian and cultural historian too. So the visuals are are necessary, I think. To
That has been shared in a public meeting though, right? Is that the same public meeting that they had? Because you can share that if it's already been in the public domain. It's the same report that I have it on my computer, right?
I shared that, if you recall, I shared that with you after a meeting with Joe Palumbo, and then we were asked by Gary Clayton, the chair of the committee, to not share it any further.
Okay.
But it was in a public meeting, so it's in the public domain.
It was in
I might be
Minutes.
mistaken. I'm sorry, I'm just mistaken about that.
And I did just also want to note that I think you said that the signs were gifted to the town, and that's not the case. The signs,
They were what?
the signs were not gifted to the town. The town
Oh.
were owned by Mass DOT, and they've confirmed that. And so I've asked them what other towns have done, so I don't think we know for certain whether other towns have taken them down or not. And the person who I spoke with, who is head of the cultural resources there, he was going to check with the people at a higher supervisory level, because of course this is such a sensitive issue, not just for the town of Concord, but for the whole state. So we just want to,
Has any of the 275 signs been taken down?
So I can in my research, I have found, I've done my online search, brought to like all the signs that towns have either changed, because like one town, for example, whited out some information and said, 5 people were murdered and now, only one, like that. That's one thing. Some have just been lost, like the 4th one. We don't know what happened to ours. We don't know if it was purposely taken down. There was never a process like this that it was taken down. Did it just someone hit it and is it in a garage somewhere, or is it gone? And I think there are many cases, because I forget the statistic, maybe you remember, Anne, of the 275, it's in one of my papers, there are only like 165, so maybe even 100 have been lost. But in all all the articles and documents I've found, no one has taken them down deliberatively because they had some concern about the information that they were conveying. That's just my understanding, but there could have been a town that just took it down. But I kind of, my instinct is to think no, but I could be wrong.
What would be
So
wrong for us to reach out to Mass Historical Commission and to seek their advice, since they certainly work with Mass DOT, as we know, and they're I don't know, they're a semi-government agency, right, Nancy? I don't know what their status,
Yes,
but they are, so they're official, and they might be on par with Mass Department of Transportation, which I don't think is.
I think they would collaborate on this. I think there's a lot of discussion right now about these signs. It seems to be not just these signs, but different markers, different statues nationwide. Everybody's looking hard at this.
So, I think, Alan, I
It'd
would
be interesting to hear what the people that Nancy's already distributed this to.
That's my question. Is that something that we can, individual can address, or does it have to come from the town, Ian?
I think it would be best for it to come from the town.
Okay, now we're talking about what, asking the commission for where they are and what they're doing? Is that what we mean?
To
What
get,
would be wrong for having Alan, as chair of the Historical Commission of Concord, writing to Mass Historical Commission, explaining what we are looking into,
Right.
and would like to seek their help.
Yeah,
right, looking
So
for
we have to
some
come
type
to
of
select
guidance
board.
from them as
Yes.
to what we can do.
Or what they would recommend, or how
Yes.
do we, yes, I think that could be very helpful, because I agree with Nancy, as in Nelson.
Right.
We know that this is a problem around the country, because we are looking into our history and trying to correct some of the wrongs, because,
mistakes, some mistakes, some just grievous.
And some, yeah,
misrepresentations.
Yes,
and
yeah.
omissions.
And I would ask for Nancy's help in putting a letter together or something, so we could ask them. If you,
Nancy Frisella.
yes.
Sure.
Do we have to put a motion together to do that, or can we just do that?
I think you can,
I think I'd like to start with a phone call
Okay,
on that.
I'd like to ask everybody who else you think that we, I've selectively shared the report carefully, and just asked for factual corrections and to get some initial feedback. In my statement of purpose, you notice in the first sentence, I have a single line. I said, with the support of town guides, Concord museum administrators, religious officials. And that is actually not true. It's a draft report. And that is not true because I didn't know if it's not a deliberate, I did it because I didn't know what the official process was and I didn't want to do something wrong. I was hoping that after this meeting that I could reach out to those people, and now I can because I can say it's up on our website, rather than me feeling like,
is
oh,
it,
Yes.
I have a little bit of problem with the way that first page reads in terms of saying that it's the strong feeling of the historical commission.
okay, so I'm glad you're bringing this up. Yeah, and we talked about that in a meeting because originally, and I'm just new to this. I didn't do that.
Yeah. No, this not, I
But
love
that is
I love the
important.
report.
And that maybe that letter, that part of it should be taken down. And as I just said, so like Joe Palumbo has already taken this to his committee and they've already submitted a letter. I
right.
think that if, and that's a big if, it's not up to me, it's up to our commission. If we get to the point where we vote to submit both the report with all the revisions, with all of your suggestions, hopefully Anne will help me and I can weave in what she finds, and what other people that I've named in that would be great. And I got the idea when I went to that forum in Sudbury, what started that conversation, their religious leaders in their town sent a letter and they said, we are, troubled by these signs. And they made their letter and they all signed it. And that's sort of what I was, that what I'm aiming for is that we get support from our community, because I think this is a community decision.
I think there's some education of people that needs to go on, and I think we're at the beginning of that. I mean, I see the offensive word in all three of these signs as relating to settlement. And it means English settlement or colonial settlement or colonialism. And with no reference to the fact that the fishing weirs were only a part of the culture and the occupation of this land by other people, not us. So I think my own opinion is that I almost wouldn't want to take them down unless we knew what was going to go in their place. And I've seen nothing about what's going to be said about the indigenous people here. And
We're not there yet. No one's proposed.
I know, but that's what I'm saying.
I
That's what
have
I'm
two comments. I'll wait until everyone else has weighed in. Does anyone else want to weigh in on that? Okay. I very clearly talked about the word settlements and settler in the section that explains the overall tercentenary marker project. That's I explained the background of that. That's why I took the trouble to do that. But that isn't, you're right, that is a big issue, and that word appears over and over again in not only our markers but others. But that is not the only problem with the sign. One of the most blatant that we've already glossed over is what is on top of every one of these signs, which is the representation of our state seal, the Native American.
Yeah.
And it's on our bridges. I've been doing the markers. Now I'm seeing it everywhere.
It's the official seal. So
There's a state committee looking into
looking at it already.
And it was just, it disbands or whatever on November 21st this year. So I'd be interested to see if that gets extended because they don't have a report yet.
They
Right?
already extended once, didn't they? Or
Right. Yeah.
still, it's assumed there'll be another extension because obviously they haven't come up with anything.
Well, Nancy, would you be willing to sit with me? Are you around next week or yeah.
I'm actually leaving the country for a
Oh,
long time, but I can zoom in anytime.
would you be willing to do that with me?
But I would absolutely be willing to do
Okay.
that.
Is there any objection for anyone in the committee or that we
No,
do?
it's going to Mass Historical Commission to ask for their counsel advice, whatever.
Yes.
Experience, their own experience. I actually contacted, but didn't quite make the contact, somebody from the old manse that I've worked with way decades ago. They've just maybe completed archaeological work right there at the old manse, and they've done extensive work at the old manse anyway. So it'd be good for me to know what we might be able to say in the future about what's going on in Concord.
Can I address the second point that Nancy made about taking the signs down without a replacement for them? I would welcome what others have to say about this. I've thought a lot about that. I think that I understand where you're coming from. I'm trying to understand, but the basic underlying fact is that these signs are factually incorrect and they're offensive. And in so many ways, as I've spent 9 months trying to explain in a carefully written report. And if we just decide that we're going to wait until we replace them, what's the point of that? The point is, I know that we don't have enough attention on African American history, on Native American history, but these do not teach people about those things. These are educational markers, and I think that's one of the most important subjects that should be pulled into this is education. Markers are about education, and they are not educational. They're educational in a negative way, and most people would need a specialist to explain it to them. I had to spend 8 months understanding it, and so having them up there, as Joe, I know he would say this if he were here. If he could be here, he would be saying this. He would say, I'm speaking for him. He probably would not want to wait. I'm sure he wouldn't want to wait. I've talked to him about this. He would say, why? Yes, we need to replace that, but that is a separate issue. That's a separate process, just like putting any marker. It took, a huge effort to get the Civil War monument marker changed. It's going to take a huge effort to get the memorial at the park, the sick parcel 1693. So yes, we want that. And it should be an exciting opportunity for us to do these things. I was given a name of someone to come to me and to talk to me about a Native American marker a couple of months ago. Maybe Melissa, you passed her name on to me, right? So, people are interested in this. Is that you, Nancy?
That was me.
I didn't
That
know
was
that.
me.
Okay.
Yes.
Nancy came
Oh,
to us
good. Oh, good. I was going to ask.
and
Yes.
he, wrote me this wonderful letter. I've been meaning to write back to you, in fact. And, so we want that. And there are people who are really excited and willing to put effort into that. But I really see that as a separate issue. I don't think we should have, one or the other. I'm going to keep pressing you because I feel like you work for our commission, and I look to you for help. And if you can't tell me what you found, then I feel really, if I could have woven in anything, if you have something different to tell me that I'm wrong, I don't want to be spending all my time talking to people if I'm wrong. That's all. If there's some piece of document or evidence, I think that we're in a meeting now, we're talking about this, and I think now is the time. I don't understand why I have to wait a month. I've worked so hard on this for 9 months. I'm ready to go.
Michael?
Yeah, I have two things to say. First of all, I absolutely agree with Nancy. If anything is discriminatory, it should be taken down as quickly as possible, especially if it's racial. That's number one. Number two, and I think Ann Clifford is a remarkable historian, and I know she's very passionate about what she does. I see there's some lack of communication. I think that the dialogue is a little uncomfortable going around. So if there's a way that at some point, through either Alan or whatever, their communication goes from Nancy to Ann and back, and this thing gets clarified, I think that's important. But I don't think that we should make Ann uncomfortable at the moment, Nancy.
Okay.
And certainly in no way take away this. The work you've done is extraordinary. It's extraordinary. And I'm sure it came from the North Bennett Street Industrial School that I was born in 10 feet away. So I think we should leave it at that. But if anything is discriminatory in this town or racial, it needs to be taken down regardless of what's coming down the road immediately. Thank you.
What I want to just say something about that. One of the things that makes me uncomfortable somehow, and Nancy, I don't know your background, but a bunch of white people sitting around deciding what's offensive to Native Americans or Black people or Jewish people or whatever. So that's, I'm hoping
that.
that it's been addressed. I didn't listen or read the transcript yet of Sudbury. I did listen to Wayland. So that's very helpful to me, but I think I told Melissa or Nancy or somebody, I had a Navajo friend once, and I said, everybody says we can't say Indian anymore, we have to say Native American. And he said to me, don't worry about it. We don't care what you call us. You white people always get it wrong anyway. So I worry about that. We're locked in our own kind of bubble there. And I think I'm looking for voices from outside.
Yeah, so I would be interested to know all the different, if I know you have tried to reach out to some Native American historians and have kind of you've hit a bit of a roadblock. But I still think obviously we need to pursue that. If there's someone who can help with that, I would presume this Christine DeLucia or the woman Lisa.
Native American.
She's not, I know, but I presume
she knows amazing though. She was part of the Wayland session that I listened to. She's amazing.
So she knows the right people. The other one, Lisa Brooks, is that her name? She's the one at Amherst.
Yes, she's written about King Philip's War and Jill Lepore.
And Jill Lepore. So they, I would presume they have connected with some historians of the native tribes that are here to satisfy that at least we have checked and understood their position on this. But I'm kind of with Mike. If it's not telling the true story. I went around with one of these. I have taken actually almost all the guide programs that the town now is offering. And I do need to talk to Joe because I actually did the one on Native Americans and it was not the best. The young fellow was trying very hard, but he really didn't have his facts very much in hand. So that's even worse. If we're presenting as a guide program, he's presenting these stories about Concord, and they're really inaccurate. So on top of the Jethro's Tree marker and the first settlement marker, particularly the one over by Orchard House, nothing existed before. Now a white man comes and anyway. I think it'd be very important, back to my original thing, it's very important to understand what the Native American historians would say and how they would guide us. I would also presume that Mass Historical Commission is in touch with those folks.
And we'll learn something. We sit and draft a letter and we get in touch with them and start working on it.
It is true that these are two different things because the 250th celebrates the American or commemorates the American Revolution. I don't know that you celebrate the war. But what we're talking about is broader and deeper, and that's about the fundamental history of the town.
Mhm.
And it
Well,
didn't
but that's
start-
also,
it didn't-
that
it
has
didn't
been,
start in 1690 or 35.
but that story about what else was going on at the time, what was the role of
Yeah.
the Blacks, what was the role of Native Americans, is very much a part of the Concord 250
Yeah.
celebration.
I
Yep.
think they're trying
I
to
didn't-
tie it all into that.
They
Yeah.
are.
They're
They
trying
are.
to tie it into it, right? So,
Great.
That's true.
So it would be great to get some reassurance from the Permanent Memorial Committee that there would be some sort of representation of the Native people, especially because it did take, like, the transaction did take place on that particular parcel. And I think
I agree 100%.
okay.
And I do want to say, following up on what Michael said, if I've crossed the bounds of propriety, I apologize. I guess I'm just become so deeply enmeshed in this research. And I'm just, I've spent a lot of time, and I need to move on to other things too. And so I get excited, and I'm just enjoying the research, and I've learned so much, and I just can't wait to see what you found out.
Well, I'd like to speak on behalf of Nancy Frisella Lee, because I asked Nancy to do this, and I think when a member of a commission takes on a project like this and does it as extensively and as well as she has done, she's to be commended.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
being discouraged, it's going to be other people are not going to take it up and to do this. So I asked you to do this because I knew you could do a great job, and you have. And you knew it was going to be, I think, controversial. And it
I'm
has.
putting myself on the line because it's not my specialty, and I've really spent a long time writing it because just using the right politically correct words. It's when that's not what I'm what I was used to writing, the kind of writing that I was doing before. I had to be really careful, and I'm still not sure that I got it right. So I want all the help that I can get, and I really appreciate all of your comments. I really look forward to the discussion tonight. Thank
It's
you.
quite an undertaking, and you've done a heck of a job. Great job.
Thank you.
As we say in the streets, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other comments? Before we move on to other business. Any other business that anyone wants to discuss?
I'll just make a comment. My
Nancy?
name is Nancy Kuszemski. I'm very grateful to be here as a public person, not as a member of the commission or as a member of any of the committees. I actually live in Carlisle, but I was trained as a Concord guide. I haven't been employed by the town since that whole way of having the guides operate has changed. But I'm very interested in Concord history. I've taken a lot of people on tours. I'm interested in the history of all people. And I got quite interested in this topic several years ago, actually, because as a guide, I learned almost nothing about Native American history in the original class, which is about 20 years ago. I was just told, well, we just don't know very much. And then I was very taken with the Caesar Robbins house, because I felt like at that point that was in place, but I don't think people knew that there were even slaves. People of my generation and after had no idea of that beginning history of our community. So I thought that it was more, I get the whole thing about the signs, and there's some other offensive things in some of the signs, but I think more it's a lack of, it's more of a sin of omission than commission in a lot of ways, because really, other than Egg Rock, which is now submerged, and you could possibly have some objection to how I had to go by in a canoe the other day to go see it. There's nothing that says anywhere there were people here.
Yeah.
And it can be very complicated. Oh, which people, these many people, that many people. So I talked to the Minuteman Park. They said, oh, we don't do anything. You talk to the 250th committees. So I've been to many committee meetings, and I frankly have just been told, well, we're not doing that. So, and you know, I don't say much. I'm not even a Concord citizen officially, but
Yes.
I just want you to know there are people out there. I mean, certainly have friends. I've certainly talked to Beth Williams. I've certainly been on all the tours and all that stuff. And there are lots of things going on in some of the local towns, in Acton and in Littleton, for example. So I just think someone coming to Concord could learn a lot about Concord, would also learn that there were Black people here who were enslaved at the time of the Revolution.
Yeah.
But they would know nothing about the indigenous African, the indigenous American, you know, Indian, whatever the term is, because there is nothing other than some of the inaccurate signs.
Yeah.
So
I
that's just where I'm coming from.
You know, makes me wonder what is being taught in the schools. I mean, I remember when my kids were in grade school, they were certainly taught about Native Americans living here, because you know, we made things, and they probably kind of tried to recreate a fishing weir. So I know it used to be taught. I don't know what's taught now.
Well, I'm more talking about coming to visit Concord. I mean, the museum does a lot of wonderful education stuff, and would certainly means they're going to have a wonderful Indigenous Peoples Day on what used to be called Columbus Day. I mean, it's not that those aspects have been totally neglected, although I think it's spotty what different curricula are in, because my background is as an educator. I worked in public schools most of my life, but I'm talking about a visitor. If you're a visitor coming to Concord, unless you go into the museum and catch that exhibit, you'll learn a lot of stuff about a lot of other things, but you won't learn that there were people here
For thousands of years, except, well, there's the one sign, the one marker on the wall that talks about the fishing weir.
the fishing weir.
That's about
But
it.
it's almost as if, you know, like that's prehistory.
Yeah. So I have another question for you, Nancy Frizella Lee. Have you talked with Shirley Blanky?
I got her email and I sent her a letter and asked her, I didn't send her the report. I just said, you know, I would like to send you the report, and I haven't reached out to her yet, but I will continue trying. I don't know. Do any of you know her? I don't.
Well, you know, we gave her the award for the well, the historian, or you know, she wasn't the preservation of the year, but remember when we did the historic preservation awards, she won the
Lifetime achievement.
lifetime achievement. And so I communicated back and forth with her about all that. So you have her email.
Can you send me her email, because then I can make sure that I send it to the right place.
Yep.
Because maybe it didn't get to her, and if because I just don't know her, so I didn't know what.
You know, she's yes, she's white, but of all the people that I'm aware of, she's done the most for the history of Concord.
Right.
And I believe she was the person who was responsible for the sign that's over on the Knowles part of the.
I didn't know that. Oh, I need to talk to her about that so I can put it in that part of my report. Well, I hope that I can get in touch with her. Then I'll try harder.
But she is from England.
Writing a book. Yeah. I don't know if you remember, because I went to the University of Cambridge as a graduate student, and she went to the same college that I went to. So I wrote to her. I said, we have this connection. So I really would love to meet with her and ask her about it.
Okay. Yep.
Great.
Nancy, it was good that you came to this meeting.
Yes.
I live on the border practically of Concord and Concord.
Me.
And the house across the street from me is where you guys met to decide you were leaving.
Yeah. Carlisle split off.
Yeah, but, but we kept the house.
Well,
So,
that's okay.
It's nice to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other new business?
Yes, the 128 bridge project looks like it's begun. And there were surveyors on Route 2A today marking out who knows what. So the Mass DOT may be about ready to start their semi-emergency safety and routine maintenance work.
Right, they're spray painting everything over there.
And big piles of dirt and tree cutting at the bridge where the clover leaves or the circles, whatever they're going to be. Lots of work beginning to happen out there for the bridge.
Yeah.
It's gonna be interesting.
Right, we see it happening.
Yeah.
So it was funny. I was out with some folks from Lincoln, and they want to see the Route 2A widened for the bicycles.
Yep, we've heard that.
Oh. I'm just throwing it out there. That's
That's what the Battle Road Trail is supposed to do, is to give those bicycles some.
the feedback. That's the feedback.
Yeah, I know. I know those guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
Anything else?
No, this busy little
Okay.
town.
Okay. And our CPC, that letter was mailed out, and that was sent out last week. So I guess everything was rolling along.
Yeah. Next week, CPC meets next Thursday, I think, next Tuesday.
And Nancy Fasoli, I'll give you a contact, and we're not deciding anything, and we'll set up, see what we can do. When are you leaving?
I'm supposed to leave on Saturday morning, but we're watching the storm, so I don't know.
Oh, yeah. How serious does that look?
It's hard to tell. I don't know, but we have an early morning flight, and that's exactly when they're saying if it comes, it will come. So who
I think
knows?
you'll be okay. I think you'll be
Doesn't
okay.
I'm getting all kinds of notes from California and Montana.
Do we have any notes, or we have to accept or vote on or anything? No
Nope.
minutes from last meetings?
Nope. Looks like
Yep.
that.
Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting tonight?
So moved.
A second.
The meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Night.
Have a nice evening.
Travel.
Hi, Nan. Simmons.